Hi everybody, thank you so much for joining today. My name is Rachel Burton and I'm a registered dietitian with Open Hand Atlanta, and today we'll be talking about food label reading and marketing gimmicks. Why is the food label important exactly? And it is important for lots of different reasons, but what's great is that it helps us get a really good idea of what nutrients are in those foods that we eat, especially the canned foods, packaged foods, and frozen foods. So this is what the nutrition label used to look like, and as you can see, it is a bit more challenging to read. It's a smaller font and can be a little bit convoluted. All right, so in 2016, there was a change to the nutrition label to include more information that made it also easier to read. And so the updated nutrition label is on the right side of the screen. And so as you can see, the serving sizes are a little bit bigger and easier to read. The calories are also bolded and larger. There's also a line for the amount of added sugar. And the nutrients that are listed are a little bit different. And we'll talk about each of these differences and what they mean in just a few minutes. All right, so to start off, when it comes to deciphering that nutrition label, we always want to start first and foremost with the serving size. And so you can see how many servings there are in the package, and this is crucial as the nutrients below are based off of this serving size in general. So really start here to look for the rest of the nutrients. What we can also do for serving size is visualize it using objects as a general rule of thumb. So for example, we have about half a cup is about the size of a standard light bulb. 1 cup is the size of a baseball. A tablespoon can be pictured as the size of a poker chip. 1 teaspoon is the size of about 1 die. And then 1.5 ounces, which is helpful for things like cheese, for example, can be visualized with about 3 dice. All right, so moving on down, something else to consider on the food label is calories. And the calories are the amount of energy that the food contains. We all need enough calories and energy for our bodies to work the way that they are supposed to work. And so keep in mind that, again, that these are based on the serving size above, and some food items may also include the calories for the entire package. And so just make sure to keep an eye out for that. And people look for calories for all different reasons, but just keep in mind that there's not a one-size-fits-all when it comes to how many calories we need in a day. It depends on lots of different things, such as our age, our activity, or if we're managing any chronic illnesses. And so talking with your healthcare provider or a registered dietitian, if you have any questions about how many calories in the day to aim for, this could be a good place to start. So moving on down the label, let's take a look at total fat, saturated fat, and trans fat. So saturated fat is linked to heart disease and high cholesterol, and trans fat is also known to raise that bad cholesterol, that LDL cholesterol, and can again also increase that risk for heart disease. So the amount of saturated fat and trans fat are higher in foods such as our butters, margarines, lard, fatty pieces of meat such as bacon or sausage, desserts such as cakes or ice creams, and also full-fat dairy like cheese and sour cream. Trans fat can be found in foods like microwave popcorn and then also our fried foods. So it's not to say that we can never have these foods ever again, but just be mindful that they can impact our heart health. So moving on down, let's talk about sodium or salt. And having too much sodium each day can increase our risk for high blood pressure, or what's also known as hypertension. And the recommended of salt each day is recommended to be about 2,300 milligrams per day, which equals out to about 1 teaspoon of salt, which when you measure that out, really isn't that much. And so if we were told to watch how much salt we eat each day, some of the culprits for high salt content foods are typically your lunch meats, such as deli meats. It can also be high in pizza, cured meats, breads and rolls, but then also our canned goods. So sometimes what we can do when we're at the store is we can watch out for canned goods if we are choosing them to be low in salt or packed with no salt added. This can really help how much salt we eat each day. If those aren't options for us at the store, that's okay. What we can also do is take that can and rinse it under some water, and then that can also get off some of that salt as well. So just some ways that we can lower our salt intake. So next, let's talk about fiber. So fiber is great for us for lots of different reasons. It can help keep our digestive tract healthy and regular. It also helps support balanced blood sugar, and it can also decrease the bad cholesterol in our blood and increase the good cholesterol in our blood. So it's great for our gut health, blood sugar management, and our heart health. And so typically we want to try and get more fiber in our diet if at all possible. So typically fiber is found in foods such as our fruits and our vegetables. It can also be found in whole wheat products such as whole wheat bread or brown rice. You can also look for quinoa, oats, and other grains of that nature. And so really looking for those foods high in fiber is always going to be beneficial for us. So right below fiber, we have our sugars. And sugar can be naturally occurring, or it can be added to food to make it taste better. And so added sugar is what is linked to our risk for chronic disease such as diabetes or heart disease. And it can be snuck into many different foods, and so this is very helpful to have on the label. And remember, this is one of the new additions to that 2016 label, that added sugar line. So foods that have added sugar are typically going to be your sweetened cereals, your flavored yogurts, your juices or sports drinks or flavored milks. Also our condiments such as ketchup or barbecue sauce, our salad dressing, and also pasta sauce. So again, just taking a look and making sure to look for any added sugar in our products if that's something that you're looking for. What's also really helpful to look at on the food label are the vitamins and minerals that are in our products. And this can be very helpful if we're told to focus on specific nutrients such as vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. And so what can be really confusing are the measurements of these nutrients. And so really what I like to focus on instead is looking at that percentage on the far right side, and typically anything over 20% on that number is going to be an excellent source for that nutrient. Anything between 10 and 19% is considered a good source for that nutrient. And then anything below 5 is not a great source for that nutrient. So that can be a good rule of thumb if you're looking for foods with specific vitamins and minerals. And lastly on that is our percent daily value. And so these are percentages of how much of a nutrient is in that food item. Remember, this is based off of that serving size. And again, this can be helpful to see if a food item has a lot or a little bit of a nutrient. And so overall, I try not to get too focused on those numbers next to the names, but usually what I like to think about instead is looking for higher percentages of foods that are for fiber, vitamin D, iron, and potassium, as these are often nutrients that we need to include more of in our everyday eating. Typically, I also like to look for foods that are lower in percentages for saturated fat, trans fat, sodium, and added sugar. All right, so next what we're going to do is switch gears and think about the labels on the front of the packages that we've seen at the grocery store. So just take a second and think about some buzzwords that you've seen on the front of packaging that maybe make it more desirable or intriguing to purchase. So some of the words that I think of are typically low, light, gluten-free, organic, all natural, fresh, healthy, vegan, grass-fed, and cage-free. And so we're going to take a closer look as to what these terms really mean. All right, so first we have anything that's labeled as low, such as low fat, low cholesterol, low sodium, low carb. And these can be considered beneficial for our health. But be mindful that if nutrients are taken out of a product, there's oftentimes something added back into it to, of course, make it taste good. So for example, we have maybe a low-fat yogurt. Well, that can maybe take out some of the fat, but it still needs to taste good, right? So in this case, maybe there's some additional added sugar into this product. And so again, just taking a look and really understanding, depending on what your needs are, it might be beneficial to just get the full item, for example. So next we have light, and this is similar to low, but usually in terms of calories or sugar. And so again, this may be helpful if you're watching your calories, but these items will not be inherently more healthy. We also have gluten-free. And so gluten is a natural protein that's found mainly in our wheat products, but also our barley, rye, sometimes oats. And this protein that's called gluten can be triggering for gastrointestinal symptoms. And so there are lots of reasons why people may need to choose gluten-free foods. Maybe it's for autoimmune disorder called celiac disease, maybe a gluten sensitivity, a wheat allergy. So lots of different reasons for avoiding those types of foods. But in general, the overall population can consume gluten safely. And so unless you absolutely need to avoid gluten for discomfort or an allergy, for example, you will not need to choose those gluten-free options. They are also typically more expensive, so again, we don't need to purchase them unless we actually have to. And they're not going to be necessarily healthier for you unless you are experiencing some intolerance towards gluten. So next we have organic. And organic means that a food is grown without using chemicals, fertilizers, usually during the growing and harvesting process. And this is a certification that is regulated by the United States Department of Agriculture that can be very expensive for a company to obtain. And so again, organic has everything to do with the production of the food, but really has nothing to do with the nutrients or the nutrition of the product. So when it comes to choosing foods for nutrition purposes only, organic foods will not be automatically healthier for us. And so again, organic will come down more to our personal preference or our budget. And so if this is, something that's important to you or something you prefer, that's absolutely your choice, but again, will not be necessarily healthier. So next we have fresh and healthy. And I see these terms a lot when I go to the store, and I'm not really sure exactly what these mean. And it turns out that these labels aren't actually regulated, nor have any meaning about the product, its quality, or its nutrition content. And so I would advise purchasing these if you would prefer, but I would not go out of your way to look for food with these particular labels on them. And then this is going to be similar with foods labeled as all natural. Ideally, this is a term used when there's nothing artificial in the product, but it doesn't have any standards or regulatory background, so really it can be used on any product. So next we have vegan, and food that's vegan means that there are no parts of the food that are derived from animals. And people can choose vegan food items for lots of different reasons. Maybe it's to have a more plant-based diet, maybe it's for ethical reasons or environmental reasons, but food that's labeled as vegan or products labeled as vegan are not going to be inherently healthier, as they can have some additional components added to them if they are a substitute for an animal product, such as vegan beef jerky or vegan Spam. All right, so lastly we have cage-free and grass-fed labels, and these are usually found on our meat products. So when it comes to cage-free is not actually a regulated term by the government, but an organization or a product can be certified as cage-free by a third-party organization, meaning that an unbiased company can come in and based on their standards can certify an operation as cage-free. And so cage-free products don't have anything to do with the quality or the nutrition, but it has more again to do with the production. And typically our cage-free eggs will cost more money. And lastly, we have grass-fed. And grass-fed means that the animal ate grasses and plants during its life rather than grains. This term is indeed regulated by the United States Department of Agriculture. And some research does show that grass-fed products do have slightly better nutritional quality than its non-grass-fed counterparts, but the difference isn't very much. So when it comes to grass-fed and cage-free, I would consider these both preferences for purchases rather than nutrition and health alone. But if these are important to you, then of course by all means. But again, when it comes to our nutrition and that quality, I wouldn't purchase it for that reason alone. So next I want to just do a little bit of an activity here. So I want to see which ones that you would choose. So we have two options here. Option 1 is a macaroni and cheese that's considered gluten-free, organic, and vegan. Option 2 is a macaroni and cheese that's considered whole grain. So which one would you choose if you were shopping? Just take a second to think about that. Yeah, so these options can both be great for lots of different reasons. So for example, option 1, if you're somebody who has a gluten allergy or an intolerance, but and is also maybe vegan, for example, option 1 would be a great choice for you. If you're somebody who can tolerate gluten just fine, we're trying to get more fiber into our diet, then option 2 will be a better example or better purchase. And again, remember those whole grain products have a bit more fiber in them. So again, both can be great for different reasons. So our last example here. Option 1 is a organically grown apple that has the United States Department of Agriculture certification. Option 2 is a conventionally grown apple. So which one would you choose? Yeah, so again, just to show that each option definitely is valid and has great qualities in both. Again, when it comes to our nutrition and nutrition quality of the products, these are typically going to be the same. So just wanting to demonstrate that there can be many factors to consider based on claims for growing, harvesting, and our dietary needs. And everybody will have a different situation and different dietary needs. So again, all these different options are going to be just fine. All right, so thank you so much for tuning in today. If you have any questions on the material from today, please feel free to reach out to the contact information on the screen, and we'd be happy to help you with anything that we can. Thank you so much, and talk to you soon. Thanks.